What's up, everybody? Sam Garcia here, architect from McAllen, Texas, coming at you with another post. Today, I wanted to talk about a topic that I think some people might be interested in, and something that I have some experience in, which is starting a business. And people wonder, well, how do I overcome the fear of starting a business, or how would I go about making that happen? This is something that I first did when I started my firm back in 2013. I was 33 years old. I had been working in architecture for about 7 or 8 years. It was something that I had always wanted to do. I was maybe a little bit young to do it, but the opportunity presented itself, and I made the most of it, and one thing led to another. But you know, it doesn't just happen automatically. It's not something that is a decision that you just make one day and then the next day you launch off and then kind of go at it off the cuff. So there was about six different things that I wanted to touch on related to that. It could be an architecture firm, it could be an engineering company, it could be any type of business. And I think the first thing that a person needs to have when they're thinking about starting a business or going to start a business is really getting into the right frame of mind because um, somebody told me once, and I think it's really sound advice, is that there is a big difference between being an employee and having a job versus being a business owner. Whereas having a job is, could be a 9 to 5 thing or could be more hours. But there's a certain mentality that comes with that. But really owning a business, that is a lifestyle. And it's not just something that you do during the day. So the first thing is to get into the right frame of mind that being a business owner is a 24/7 sort of thing and it's a lifestyle. What does that mean? It means that you have to be constantly sort of on your game about thinking about the business. How could this help the business? And making that decision that this is what I'm going to do with my life. So, it doesn't always start off easy, and there's a lot of mistakes. But if you can consider things and take things as a learning process, that helps. One of the things that I did, even though I started my business in 2013, well before that, 2012, 2011, in the years leading up to that, I did a lot of legwork and as many sort of quote unquote free things as I could before I started my company. What does that mean? As an architecture company, as an architecture firm, I, in my own spare time, did a lot of the things that I knew that an architecture firm was going to need in terms of setting up my software, in terms of setting up what my drawings were going to look like, creating a business plan, creating business cards, coming up with the name of the company. I laid out a website, even though it wasn't live, but I started, putting all these things together kind of as a hobby and initially just sort of like as a design exercise, something that I wanted to kind of try. At first it was almost like playing make believe. It was sort of like when you're a little kid and you're just kind of trying things out. But little by little, I started to gain momentum. I started putting these pieces together that if and when the opportunity presented itself to start a company, I was going to need these things anyway. So there's a level of research and planning and groundwork that you have to lay ahead of time. Now, that's not to say that you want to go overboard in terms of research or in terms of planning, because you can get in the loop of trying to come up with like a perfect plan or do more research or I need to think about it more or I need to dive into it more. There's a certain amount of things that you're going to need and that you figure you're going to need, and so I did that. There's a lot of resources online to create business plans, to create business outlines, to create and to sort of get you thinking about what your business is going to be about. The next thing that kind of comes in the transition, especially when you're just starting your business, but it's something that is important throughout the life cycle of a business, is coming up with your go-to talking points. What does that mean? It means that as you start a business and as you pursue projects and you pursue work or you pursue customers, you're going to realize pretty quickly that you really end up having the same five or six conversations over and over again, or they're sort of variations on the same five or six different conversations. So as you kind of role play this out, what I did was I would have these sort of talking points about why I'm starting my business, or what I hope to do, or what I think is important, or um, what I want to make my business about, so on and so forth. And then I would have, like, I don't know, kind of, I never wrote them down, but you could imagine, like a paragraph or like 30 seconds or a minute worth of something to say about your projects. As if, for example, I'm just going to kind of put myself in the mindset of when I was starting my company. I would talk about, well, I've been in the field for 7 years. In the time I've worked at firms in this location and that location, during which I started as an intern, and then I quickly worked my way up to a job captain and a project manager type level. I've managed architectural projects that are valued in this many millions of dollars. I've worked on these different types of projects, which I think gives me a broad experience to be able to handle your type of project, so on and so forth. That's very rough. I said that just really off the cuff. But what I'm getting at is you develop your handful of talking points, where you're from, what you're trying to do. And I would practice them all the time. I'd be driving in my car and I would just kind of be rehearsing it. I'd be brushing my teeth, I would be kind of rehearsing it. And sure enough, when the time comes to be talking to people and to getting to know people or trying to get customers, that legwork and that effort of having your talking points and having what you want to say rehearsed ahead of time, it makes you sound more confident, it makes you sound like you know what you're talking about. And if you do it right, there's a sweet spot where you come across as very confident, very competent, but it also, if you say what you're trying to say in the moment, you come across as spontaneous. So, like, the best place to get to is to sound like you know exactly what you're talking about, but at the same time, that in the conversation that you're having with somebody, sound make it sound like you just kind of came up with it off the top of your head. I don't know if I'm explaining that too well, but what I'm saying is you don't want to come across as canned or like you're just like you're very mechanical about it. But it should be sort of an organic thing, something that you've talked about and something that you've said and that you believe. Very important. You need to believe what it is that you're talking about. That sort of rehearsal keeps you sharp and it keeps you very authentic in those real life situations. The other thing I think that is important and was sort of important, it could be important to anybody starting a business or thinking about starting a business, is to realize that every business, no matter what it is, at the core of it, at the heart of it all, faces the same challenge. And that challenge is getting customers, getting clients. So, whether you're a one man operation or a huge business, everybody's trying to get customers and get clients. So, the advantage sometimes that a small business, that a new business has, is that because you're small and you're starting off small, you don't have a ton of overhead. You shouldn't have a ton of overhead. You don't have a bunch of employees and um, rent and all sorts of things to cover. So that's an advantage over a larger business. That you can be nimble, that you can be flexible. Sometimes when starting off, you can if you can't if you don't have the experience and the sort of resume and portfolio and background, where you can be competitive is in pricing. Now that's a sort of double-edged sword down the road, because you don't want to always be just the cheapest or just the most cost effective. But certainly when you're starting out a company and starting in business, there's something to be said about there's just as much value sometimes in getting work and getting the business started as it is in the actual sort of fees or rates that you're charging. So that's something to kind of be aware of. Another thing, I think this is something that certainly played a big role in me being able to start my company, was in leading up to it, I had done. as much as I could over, the course of a couple years, 2, 3 years, in really being disciplined financially and getting my bills down, getting my footprint as small as possible so that my living expenses were as minimal as possible so that if I did and when I did start my company, there was more, um, I was under less pressure, let's say. So, that's something that goes into personal finance and personal preference. But if you know that you're going to start a business, you got to be smart in terms of, the purchases that you make, in terms of credit card debt, in terms of, what you're driving and your lifestyle. So, again, this kind of goes back to the original thing. If you consider being in business a lifestyle, the initial aspect of that lifestyle sort of just demands a level of financial austerity and being lean and not having a huge personal overhead that you have to support. I think one of the things that can stop people is this idea of that your lifestyle might be your requirements of what you have to make to support your lifestyle may be pretty daunting. And so the prospect of starting a business and not knowing how long it's going to take to get it off the ground, not knowing how long it's going to take to start generating income and so forth, can be a bit of a that it can be kind of scary. So try to keep your overhead personally as low as possible. Remember that you have to have the right frame of mind. Do as much legwork as you can behind the scenes. Rehearse and polish your own talking points as it relates to your business and your company and what you're trying to do so that you can come across as competent and authentic yet sharp. And just understand again that no matter what business you're in, uh, it's all about getting customers. So I hope that was a little bit of good advice and something that somebody could connect with. And if you have any questions or want me to discuss that further, I'm certainly going to be discussing it further. I got some other projects coming out and things that I'm working on that are kind of related to that. But I just kind of wanted to touch the very sort of top level sort of overview of some of the mental shifts and mental approaches that I took when starting my own business. So thanks.